At 11 o'clock at night, my husband slapped me across the face because there was no food on the table. He screamed, "Hurry up and serve dinner, you useless woman!" I walked in and out of the kitchen for 20 minutes without saying a single word. When I finally returned with a covered serving tray, they thought it would be a delicious meal. But when the lid was lifted, there was no food inside, only a one-way ticket to hell for them. The clock on the living room wall read 11:10 at night. Outside the house, absolute silence reigned. The only sound was the tires of my car grazing the asphalt of the driveway. I felt as if my entire body was about to shatter. I had spent the whole day at the office wrestling with a stack of audit documents that had to be ready by the next morning. A sharp pain throbbed in my head, like a hammer striking repeatedly, but I forced myself to fake a faint smile, imagining the plush bed that would soon welcome me. All I wanted was a hot shower and uninterrupted sleep. I killed the engine and stumbled toward the front door. The house keys jingled in my hand, which was trembling slightly from exhaustion. As the door opened, the cold blast from the central air conditioning hit me square in the face. It was strange. Usually at this hour, the living room lights should have been off, but tonight every lamp was blazing. Suddenly, I had a bad feeling. My steps halted at the threshold as I saw 3 people sitting on the living room sofa with indecipherable expressions. My husband, Javon, sat in the center with his legs crossed in arrogance. To his right, my mother-in-law, Miss Eudora, shot me a sharp, judgmental glare, and to his left, my sister-in-law, Takara, was fiddling with her phone, eyeing me sideways with a mocking smirk every few seconds. Before I could even say hello, Javon jumped up and strode toward me with long, aggressive steps. His face was beet red, his jaw tight. Seeing the veins bulging in his neck, I knew his emotions were about to erupt. "Honey, I just got home from work." Before I could finish the sentence, a heavy slap landed on my left cheek. Smack! The sound was so loud, it shattered the silence of the living room. In an instant, a stinging heat spread across my face. The blow was so forceful, my head snapped to the side. I froze on the spot. The exhaustion that had been weighing down my body seemed to vanish, replaced by the shock of the impact. My right hand, clutching my increasingly numb cheek, trembled. I looked at Javon, trying to find a shred of guilt in his eyes, but there was none. Only a flash of fury ready to explode. "Do you know what time it is, you cheap tramp?" Javon screamed right in my face. His spit flecked my hair. "Who do you think you are coming in at this hour? What are you doing out there in the streets while your husband waits at home?" I swallowed the tears, fighting to escape. "Baby, I've been working late. You know it's the end of the month and I'm swamped. I had a lot of work. Plus, I texted you this afternoon," I replied, my voice shaking but trying to remain calm. I didn't want to look weak in front of them. Ms. Eudora cut me off with a voice sharp as a razor. The middle-aged woman rose from the sofa and pointed a finger in my face. "What kind of wife are you? We've been sitting here for an hour starving to death. There isn't a single plate of food on the table. The pots are empty, and the fridge only has cold water. You're trying to starve my son and grandchildren on purpose, aren't you?" Takara chimed in without taking her eyes off her phone screen, as if I were less important than a social media video. "Get a grip, sis. Javon has been tired all day resting at home. A wife is supposed to buy food on the way back from work or cook something. How can you walk in empty-handed? You're useless." I looked at them one by one. Javon, my unemployed husband, who lied to the neighbors saying he had started a business after being fired 6 months ago for embezzling company funds. Ms. Eudora, my mother-in-law, who demanded thousands of dollars a month for her expenses without lifting a single dirty plate in this house. And Takara, my 25-year-old sister-in-law, whose only job was to sleep, eat, and shop online with my supplementary credit card. All of them lived off my sweat. All of them breathed under the roof of this house, the mortgage of which I paid every single month. And now they were screaming at me because I came home late to make them dinner. "Go cook something right now, you useless woman!" Javon yelled again. This time he shoved me roughly by the shoulder, making me stumble back until I bumped into the shoe rack. Don't you dare come out of that kitchen until there is a delicious meal on the table, and it better be good or I'll throw the plates in your face." I took a deep breath, trying to suppress the anger starting to burn in my chest. I wanted to scream. I wanted to vomit all the rage I had been holding back. I wanted to kick them out of the house right then and there. But no, acting on impulse would ruin my plan. I needed to stay calm, to get revenge in the most painful way possible for them. An elegant revenge they wouldn't forget for the rest of their lives. I straightened up and fixed my messy hair. I looked Javon directly in the eyes. In me, there was no longer a trace of fear or sadness, only a cold, empty stare. "All right," I said in a low but firm voice. "Y'all hungry? Give me 20 minutes. I'll prepare a special dish for you tonight, the one you deserve the most." Without waiting for their response, I walked past Javon, ignoring Ms. Eudora's mocking look and Takara's sarcastic laugh, and headed straight for the kitchen, the place where I used to spend hours serving them like a maid. But tonight would be different. Tonight, the smell of delicious soul food wouldn't be coming out of this kitchen. Tonight, this kitchen would be the place where I cooked up their ruin. As soon as I reached the kitchen, I closed the door firmly. Leaning my back against it, I closed my eyes for a moment to gather my strength. The sting on my cheek persisted, but the wound in my heart was much more painful. During these 5 years of marriage, I had always tried to be a devoted wife. I turned a blind eye to Javon's laziness. I tried to understand Ms. Eudora's complaints and gave in to Takara's immature behavior. I thought if I had patience, they would change. I was completely wrong. My patience had done nothing but feed the monster inside them. They became greedier, crueler, and more shameless. I opened my eyes. The tears I had held back earlier had dried up completely. It wasn't worth crying over parasites like them. I headed to a drawer in the corner of the kitchen, the place where I had kept important things I had been hiding. Enough is enough. This low-budget drama has to end tonight. I made noise on purpose, clashing the knife against the cutting board. Chop, 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 chop. The rhythm filled the kitchen and pierced through the walls to the living room. I knew exactly what they were thinking out there. They were surely smiling with satisfaction, thinking I had folded again. They probably thought this foolish wife was hurriedly chopping onions or meat to fill their demanding stomachs, scared to death. But on the kitchen counter, not a single ingredient had been touched. The large knife was just repeatedly hitting an empty cutting board. It was part of the show. I wanted them to feel on top of the world before making them fall into the deepest abyss. While I kept making fake noises, my other hand was busy preparing the real dinner. I pulled out a large silver platter that I normally only used for special family occasions like Thanksgiving. The tray shone under the kitchen light. On it, I placed no red beans and rice or side dishes. There were no smothered pork chops, no candied yams, nor the honey-glazed ham they usually demanded. Instead, I took a thick envelope from a secret drawer under the sink, an envelope I had prepared 3 months ago, waiting for the right moment. I opened the envelope and took out 3 important documents. First, the property deed to this house. I originally bought this house with my savings, but Javon insisted I put his name as a co-owner to feel respected as the man of the house. However, last month, after paying the final installment with my year-end bonus, I secretly initiated the process to transfer the ownership completely to my name. The process was complicated and expensive, but fortunately, I knew a trusted notary who could get the job done quickly and without Javon finding out. This document was proof that every brick, every tile, and every inch of land on this property belonged to me. Second, the divorce papers. This document was already stamped. It detailed the grounds for divorce: verbal abuse, the physical violence that had just occurred, fortunately recorded by the security camera I installed in the living room a week ago, and financial abandonment. I was fed up with supporting a man who only knew how to give orders. Third, a stack of bank statements as thick as a notebook. On them, I had highlighted in bright fluorescent marker all the transactions leaving my account to maintain their lifestyle. Javon's car note for his SUV, the monthly allowance Ms. Eudora used for her church hats and social clubs, the charges on my supplementary credit card that Takara used to buy designer bags and Jordans, and even the money for Javon's cigarettes and gas. Everything was meticulously recorded. The total sum was astronomical, enough to buy a small house in the suburbs. It was irrefutable proof that I was the head of this family, not Javon. I arranged these 3 documents neatly on the tray, the deed in the center, the divorce papers on the left, and the transfer receipts on the right. Then I covered it with a shiny silver dome lid. Perfect. At first glance, it looked like a fancy dinner from a 5-star restaurant. I glanced at my wristwatch. Exactly 20 minutes had passed. It was time for the main show to begin. I lifted the tray with both hands. Its weight was nothing compared to the weight of the life I had been enduring, but I felt it was the most beautiful burden I had ever lifted. I took a deep breath and, with a blank face, kicked the kitchen door open. In the dining room, the 3 of them were already sitting docilely around the table. Their faces looked impatient. The silverware was already in their hands, ready to devour whatever meal I served them. When they saw me come out with the large covered tray, Ms. Eudora's eyes lit up. "That's how I like it," said Ms. Eudora, readjusting herself in her seat with sarcasm. "A wife needs to be quick on her feet. She shouldn't just make money, but also prioritize the stomachs of her husband and in-laws." Javon snorted with a sullen face that still reflected his earlier anger. "You took too long. I hope it tastes as good as the time we waited. If it's bland, get ready to make it again." Takara even craned her neck. "What is it, sis? I don't smell anything from here. You didn't just make instant noodles, did you?" I didn't answer a word. I placed the tray in the center of the table slowly, with a majestic gesture. The sound of the tray touching the glass table silenced them for a moment. I stood tall at the head of the table, looking at them one by one with a gaze that made Javon feel a little intimidated. He probably felt a drastic shift in my aura. "Go ahead, help yourselves," I said briefly. "This is the best dish I can offer you tonight. Eat it all up." Impatient, Javon reached out and roughly lifted the silver lid. The sound of the lid clattering onto the table echoed loudly in the eerie silence that suddenly took over the room. There was no hot steam or smell of spices to whet the appetite. On the tray, there was only a pile of papers. Javon's eyes widened like saucers when he saw the papers. He squinted, trying to read the letters on the top document. His face, previously red with anger, turned pale as he recognized the logo and the title at the top of the page. What is all this?" His voice trembled, not from anger, but from confusion and a budding panic. Ms. Eudora, with her far-sightedness, snatched the thickest stack of papers. "Where is the food? Why are you giving us newspapers? Have you lost your mind, Aziza?" But when she saw the figures marked in highlighter on the bank statements, her eyes bulged. What is this?" Takara, who caught on to the situation faster, grabbed the divorce papers directly, skimmed them, and looked at me with her mouth hanging open. "Javon, she wants a divorce!" she screamed hysterically. The atmosphere exploded in an instant. Javon threw the house deed he was holding onto the table, stood up, and pointed a shaking finger in my face. "Divorce papers? Who do you think you are to divorce me? And this? This is the house deed. Why is only your name on it? Where is mine? Did you trick me?" I smiled, a very sweet smile, but cold and piercing. "Enjoy reality, Javon. Ms. Eudora, Takara, fill your stomachs looking at those numbers. That is the amount of my money you have been squandering," I said, staring straight into Javon's eyes. "This house is mine, legally and morally. I kept the original document safe in the bank deposit box this morning. That is just a copy, so tearing it up won't do you any good." Then I turned my gaze toward Ms. Eudora, who was starting to shake while holding the transfer receipts. "And starting this moment, I am kicking all of you out of my house." "By what right are you kicking us out?" screamed Ms. Eudora. Her voice was so shrill my ears rang. This is my son's house. Javon is the man of the house. You are just a freeloader." "Man of the house?" I chuckled, a laugh that sounded pathetic. What man of the house feeds his family with his wife's money? What man of the house allows his mother to insult his wife? You should know, Ms. Eudora, that Javon hasn't contributed a single dollar to this house for a year. Even the electric bill lighting up your head right now is paid by me." Javon growled. His hands clenched into fists, as if ready to strike me again. He rounded the table and approached me. His intention to hurt me was evident. "You insolent! If you don't take back what you said, What are you going to do?" I challenged him. I didn't step back an inch. On the contrary, I lifted my chin, provoking him. "Hit me again. Go ahead. The security camera in the corner up there already recorded you slapping me in the living room earlier. If you lay a hand on me one more time, that footage will automatically upload to the cloud and send to my lawyer's phone. Besides the divorce papers, do you want a bonus criminal charge for domestic violence?" Javon's steps halted dead in their tracks. He lifted his head and saw the small camera blinking with a red light in the corner of the room. His face transformed into a mix of fear and extreme hatred. He realized he had walked into my trap. "Get out!" I said coldly. "Right now!" The silence my threat had created lasted only a few seconds before breaking into a deafening uproar. Ms. Eudora was the first to lose her composure. The elderly woman, who always maintained an elegant image in front of her church friends, was now screaming like a woman possessed. With her wrinkled hands, she swept all the papers off the table, scattering them on the floor. Her face was bathed in tears, not of sadness, but of rage. She felt humiliated by the daughter-in-law she had considered a walking ATM. She couldn't accept the reality that her luxurious life was vanishing in the blink of an eye. Ms. Eudora pounded the table repeatedly with her palms. Her voice was broken, accusing me of being a first-class scammer. She claimed I had manipulated Javon, that I had used voodoo or black magic, or that I had stolen his assets taking advantage of her son's oversight. The accusation sounded ridiculous to me. How was I going to scam Javon if he had no assets? From the spoons and forks in this house to the car in the garage, I had bought everything with the sweat of my brow. But logic didn't seem to work for them anymore, plunged into the panic of losing their livelihood. Javon, who had been momentarily cowed by the camera threat, now started pacing around the dining room like a caged beast. He pulled at his hair in frustration. His eyes darted around the room frantically, as if looking for an escape route to reverse the situation. He picked up the copy of the house deed scattered on the floor, crumpled it into a ball, and threw it at me. The paper ball hit my shoulder without hurting me and bounced off, but it showed how powerless he felt in that moment. He realized he had no legal ground to refute me. The documents were real, the transfer proofs were clear, and he knew perfectly well he had been living off my money all this time. The immature sister-in-law, Takara, reacted differently, but just as annoyingly. Instead of screaming or making a scene, she hugged the designer bag she had just bought last week, with my credit card, of course, and started crying hysterically. She clung to her brother, begging him to do something. She was afraid of becoming homeless, of not being able to flex on social media anymore, that her friends would find out she wasn't actually rich. Her sobs gave me a headache, but at the same time they produced a strange satisfaction in me. Finally, the girl felt fear for her future, the same fear that always tormented me every time I saw the credit card bills inflated because of her. I let them vent their emotions for a few minutes. I stood at the end of the table with my arms crossed, enjoying the spectacle of the ruin of a family of parasites. When I considered it was enough, I walked toward a corner of the room. There, behind the long window curtains, I had hidden something. I pulled out 3 large black trash bags, filled to the brim. They were industrial-strength garbage bags. I dragged the bags to the center of the room. The sound of the plastic grazing the tiled floor made them turn their heads. With all my strength, I threw the bags at them one by one. Thud, thud, thud. The 3 large bags landed right at their feet. Javon jumped back, startled. Ms. Eudora stopped screaming, and Takara stopped crying for a moment. They looked at the trash bags with confused expressions. A faint smell of mothballs mixed with dust emanated from the bags. "Those are your things," I said with a flat, emotionless voice. "I already packed everything this afternoon while you were at the mall. I put your clothes, pants, shoes, and personal items I consider important in there. The rest of the stuff I consider trash or that I bought